Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. You'll hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and writers that cover the NFL on a daily basis. The New Orleans Saints podcast starts right now. Here's your host, Erin Summers.
Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. I'm Erin Summers. The Saints are officially out of office. With the bye this week, the Saints are taking some time off to rest and recover mentally and physically before the December push. Here's interim head coach Darren Rizzi.
When you have a late bye like this, it's a little, to me, a little bit of a complete different mentality than those early in the season buys. And so, number one, we got to rest and relax and get our bodies back and come back refreshed. I think that's number one. Number two, we have a little momentum going here over the last couple of weeks, so I think it's important that we come back, with that same mentality. Sometimes when you step away for a minute or two, it can be easy to kind of lose track, lose focus. So, just coming back, getting some downtime, everybody getting healed up, getting the bodies right, getting some good recovery in. At the same time, coming back with a focus and a purpose and, coming back in the building.
Couple honors to acknowledge today as Taysom Hill was named the NFC Offensive Player of the Week after his big performance against the Browns. 8 receptions, 188 scrimmage yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns in the Saints' 35-14 win over Cleveland. He became the first non-running back in NFL history with at least 125 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns in a game. This is the 3rd Player of the Week award for him, 2nd Offensive Player of the Week. He did have a prior Special Teams Player of the Week honor in 2018. He is now the first New Orleans player with at least 2 offensive honors and 1 Special Teams honor. And fresh off his Ring of Honor ceremony Sunday, New Orleans Saints legend Jahri Evans has been named a semifinalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2025. This is Evans' 3rd consecutive season as a semifinalist. He was selected as a finalist last year, so we're really hoping he gets in this time around. For today's podcast, we have 2 guests, Super Bowl champ Scott Shanle on the Saints so far this season, and what to look forward to after the bye week, and Sara Anderson, the Director of Entertainment Teams at the Saints and Pelicans, who had a special guest join them for Falcons Week. Let's kick things off with Scott. Scott, thanks for jumping on the podcast with me. We have had 2 great games in a row. The Saints 2-0. That's all I'm counting right now. We started the season 2-0. We're 2-0 now, forgetting about the middle part. But no, really, what do you think has been the biggest difference over these last 2 games?
I think it's hard to dispute the energy level that the guys are playing with. And I think getting back home in the dome and, we said after the Atlanta game, it was almost, you don't ever want to lose a coach in the middle of the season, but to help, you get 2 home games and you play your hated rival. And I think the crowd brought it against the Atlanta Falcons. And there's just seems to be an extra bounce in the guy's step. And when you see them smiling after the game, like they were after the Atlanta game, it just validates all their hard work. These guys work hard. Nobody wants to lose. They're competitors. They're world-class athletes. And so when all that hard work gets validated, it just makes them continue to do it that much more. And you have to give Coach Rizzi a lot of credit. I mean, that's a tough situation to step into. There's a lot of guys, defensive guys have been with DA for a ton of years. And so they're loyal to DA. And Coach Rizzi comes along and injects new life and changes some things and changes some practice schedules. And there's been a lot that's happened in the last 2 weeks. But most importantly, they're 2-0. They've won 2 games.
Defensively, the Saints put a big emphasis on finishing, and they were able to do that against the Falcons. In the end, that's what the difference was in that game. And then really the 4th quarter of this last game where the Saints go 21-0 in the 4th quarter of action was a huge emphasis on the way to finish. How do you actually achieve that as a player? I mean, what does the focus have to be?
Yeah, I think, a lot of times, a lot of teams that I've been a part of, or teams currently, that they talk about finishing strong because these games in the NFL, they come down to a field goal. They come down to 1 or 2 plays being made in the end. And so when I hear finish, it's yes, you want to finish strong to win the game, but it's about finishing when you're tired and you're beat up and you're battered, your mental toughness. To me, finishing is more about your mental toughness and being able to overcome all those things that have happened quarters 1 through 3, the good and the bad. And now all we care about is the 4th quarter started. All we care about is there's 2 minutes left in the game and it's a tie game. Like the mental toughness of a team, I think lends to how well they finish. And this team played some of their best football against the Cleveland Browns. They finished strong. They played well in all three phases. The defense gave up a lot of yards, yes, but they didn't give up a lot of points. And the special teams are making plays. So they're not only starting strong, but they're finishing strong, and you'll win a lot of games doing that.
Can you survive allowing that many yards?
No, I think a defensive coordinator will tell you I'm not going to survive if I give up that many yards. And it's just everybody looks at stats, and so when you give up that many yards, you're going to be in the 30s in total defense. And as a player, you don't want your name tied to that. But you know what? If you ask all those players and D coordinators, will you give up 400 yards per game, but only give up 14 points per game? They would all take it because the number one stat in defensive football is points. So, but to answer your question, there's no way you're going to give up 400 yards passing every week and give up that many yards and only give up 14 points. That was kind of an outlier last week. So you don't want to give up that many yards because ultimately, when they're moving that ball up and down the field like that, you're going to give up points at some point.
Stopping the run has been another big emphasis for the Saints, something that they've needed to improve on. Only 66 yards allowed against the Browns. Is it something that the Saints did, or the Browns just struggle in that area?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the two. I think the Saints definitely were better. If you see some of the coaches' tape and seeing the end zone copies of the run fits, guys were in their gaps, guys were doing their job. Demario was playing downhill, the linebackers were playing downhill. So I think the run game responsibilities definitely look better, but it is a little bit of Cleveland as well, because Cleveland, they throw the ball more than anybody in the NFL. They have one of the worst running games in the league. And I don't know if it's because they throw the ball too much or if it's because they're trailing, but they just haven't been one of the best run offenses in the NFL. That's not the Saints' problem. What is really good is you faced a bad run team and you kept them playing bad run football. So that's a credit to the Saints. You weren't the outlier. You didn't let a bad run team come in and rush for 200 yards. And the Saints' run defense has been a little bit of an issue this year, but hopefully this is a sign of things to come.
Looking at the Saints defensive line, that was another area that they wanted to improve on, is the pressure. And the last two games, they've had 3 sacks in each. What have you seen that's been different?
Well, first of all, in the last 2 weeks, I think the rotation, it makes a little bit more sense. You can start with seeing 94 on the field. Cam's been playing, that Carolina game, he was trending towards single digit numbers as far as reps. And he was at 10 reps against Carolina, barely played. And then, coaching change happens. Brian Young's now the defensive line coach. Cam's been involved much more heavily at playing his natural defensive end position. So getting Cam back on the field, I think has raised the level of play along the defensive line. And whether people will dispute if Cam's the same Cam Jordan, Father Time is undefeated. Even if Cam's lost a step, Cam's mental ability to know what offenses are doing, his handwork, he had a sack against Atlanta. So I think playing 94 more has helped the defensive line. But I do believe that the rotations are better. Who's playing where, when on first, second, and third down. Brian played probably his best game last week. 1.5 sacks. We've always said he's a great pass rusher. I mean, he's got a tremendous spin move. He's very athletic for his size. His thing was playing against the run, and it is hard getting double teamed. And Brian did a good job against Cleveland. Like I said, when you watch the coach's tape, he did a much better job in the run game. So I think those guys are playing the run better. And when you play the run better, you get more opportunities to rush the passer. And so I think it goes hand in hand. And that to me has been the biggest difference with the D-line playing better. They played the run better, so now they have an opportunity to feast and go get the sacks.
Do you actually sit down and watch the coach's tape after games?
Not every week. Sometimes if it's really bad, I do, because I'm like, what happened? But if it's really good, I want to see what the improvements were. So there were definitely improvements in the run game because guys were staying in their gaps and doing their jobs.
Somebody else who I think you can't compare his mental ability is Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, he's all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he's also aging. Say the same thing with Cam Jordan, but he still seems like he's effective out there and a huge part of this defense in the secondary. What has been the biggest highlight for you over the first half of the season?
I think the takeaways. I think that the secondary has done a really good job of taking the football away, and they've battled a lot of adversity, a ton of adversity at that position. I mean, you trade away your best secondary player, and obviously the organization is trying to get draft picks. They're building capital, and it was a win-win for both organizations because I think you have really good young players. Alante is playing some of his best football. Obviously, it's not good that Debo went down in a contract here with his leg injury. So when I say adversity, there's been tons of it. I mean,
Yeah.
injuries, trades, but still that position group just every single week finds a way to make plays. And whether it's ball disruption, whether it's actually intercepting the ball, but they fly downhill and they tackle in the run game. Will Harris did an outstanding job tackling in the run game last week. And, every time you talk about Tyrann, he's getting older, he's losing a step. You go DeMario, he's getting older, losing a step. Then you go Cam, oh, he's getting too old. Every time you say that, these guys just make a huge play in the game.
Yeah.
And that seemed like it was like that last week. So I think the secondary, I marvel at their ability to overcome all the adversity. If there's one position group that's faced adversity this season, it's been the secondary, and they've done a good job overcoming it.
I don't know. The offensive lineman might have something to say about that.
Yeah, that's for Eric McCoy. If he listens to podcasts, he's going to be like, "What are you kidding me? I haven't dealt with any adversity." So yeah, the offensive line for sure. But I do know that coming out of training camp, the biggest concern for a lot of people was the right tackle and Trevor Penning. So if you're going to talk about the offensive line and the injuries, you got to talk about the things that have done good, especially at the tackle positions. Myles Garrett had his least productive game. Pro Football Focus, if anybody pays attention to what their numbers are, he had his least productive game of the season, and he's going against two really young offensive linemen, young tackles for the Saints. So you got to feel good about that.
I mean, yeah, how crucial has it been that Taliese Fuaga has seamlessly transitioned into the NFL and at that changed changed sides?
Oh, I mean, I think every GM's biggest fear and organization is when they draft an offensive lineman in the first round, because what's going to naturally happen is the fan base is going to moan and groan, oh, an offensive lineman. That's just the way it is. Everybody wants a quarterback. They want a wide receiver. They want flashy players. But if you take an offensive lineman in the first round, you have to hit it because the fan base will never forget. And if you hit on a first round lineman, those guys can play 10, 12, 15 years and be a cornerstone for your old lineman. Now you can go get all these other positions. So there's no doubt. And, I've told a lot of people just when we were out there in California for camp and you watch Fuaga and you're like, okay, you hit on this one. It doesn't take you long to realize that he acts like he's 30 years old. He acts like he's been to multiple Pro Bowls. Like he is wise beyond his years. And so I definitely think the Saints hit, and they probably found that out pretty early. Now, when you hit on those positions and Trevor's really come along and you don't have to worry about the tackle position going in the draft, now you can start to fill out your roster and build depth.
Taysom Hill isn't always going to go for over 200 yards in a game, but what can you sustain from his performance? I mean, obviously using him like that in multiple ways was something they were trying to do going into that game.
Yeah, it's a credit to the coaching staff, number one, because every week Taysom has the ability to have a big game because of all the different positions he plays. But I tell you what, I've had the number of people I've had come up to me this week and say, "Man, Taysom Hill killed it in fantasy for me this week." I'm like, I don't play fantasy, but I bet he did. I mean, it was the Taysom Hill game. When people talk about the Cleveland Browns 2024 game, it was it. And I'll throw Taysom in there. We just talked about Cam and Tyrann and Mario, all these guys. Oh, they're getting old. They're getting old. Are they going to trade Taysom? He's getting old. And then he goes and rips off a game like that. He is such a valuable player. He can play quarterback, running back, fullback, tight end. And it is hard enough to do that in high school football. And you don't even see it in college football. And this guy is doing it in the NFL. He will go down as one of the best all-time football players. And the post-game press conference when they said to Taysom, "Have you ever heard the name Red Grange? Do you know who Red Grange is?" You're talking about guys who were Ironmen who did it all. And it's 2024 and Taysom Hill's doing that in today's league. It's phenomenal what he's able to do, and what his true value is to this team is phenomenal.
Yeah. What does he do for this team when he's healthy, when he's going, that makes it so difficult for the opposing teams?
Yeah, I mean, if I put on my defensive coordinator hat and I'm an opponent or a defensive player, and I've said this before, when Taysom's active and he's playing in a game, you don't know personnel-wise what he is. 12 personnel is one running back, two tight ends. And every play, the defense is signaling what the personnel is. Well, I don't know. When Taysom's in the game, what's he playing? I don't know what defense to call because I don't know where he's going to line up. That puts a ton of pressure on a defensive coordinator, puts a ton of pressure on a defensive player. But if I'm a teammate of Taysom Hill's and I'm on the same sideline as him, it's exciting because He's big enough to run away from people. He's strong enough to stiff arm people and run them over. And he's exciting. He's like the juice box guy. He just brings a ton of energy to the sideline, and it's fun to watch him. And after he makes a play, if you look to the sideline and just see the energy level that
Yeah.
raises on the sideline, that's what Taysom Hill does for the team.
Would you want to tackle him?
No, because he's one of those. I mean, what's he squat 650 pounds? He probably runs a 4.4 or did at one time. Maybe he's a 4.5 guy now. But it's one thing to tackle a big, strong guy, but it's another thing to tackle a big, strong, fast guy. And I think that's what makes Taysom so dangerous. You have to prepare a certain way to tackle a fast guy, but now this guy can run you over, and that's why you get put on this highlight tape all the time.
Going into the bye this week, off 2 wins, it got to feel a lot better than where the team was when they were going through their losing streak. What do you think the biggest focus is for this week off?
Yeah, bye week is always a mental refresher. And I think when you refresh mentally, you refresh physically in a lot of ways. You're just getting away, and guys are going to take care of their bodies and just getting ready for this last part of the stretch run. And it's 1 week at a time for sure. But when you're in the media, you can look at, the bigger picture. And there's a lot of winnable games. Obviously, the Rams at home, you're going to play a mid-afternoon kickoff, which you don't normally do a whole lot. The Rams are kind of an up-and-down team. They're a dangerous team. They won a Super Bowl a couple of years. They still have some of those guys on the team. If you don't show up and play pass defense, Stafford can rip you for 400 yards. Cooper Kupp, they have a ton of weapons. So you still have to play well, but then you go on the road to the Giants, and they have their issues at quarterback. So to me, I'm looking like the next 2 weeks are extremely winnable games. And if you win these 2 games, all of a sudden you're 6-7. That's how crazy it goes from 2-7 in this league to 6-7. And now you're looking at crazy scenarios where you can win a division.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that we're sitting here actually talking about that, because the way the Falcons have been losing, it is attainable for the Saints. They'll need a little help, but it's still something that's out there. As a player, when you go from the situation you were in to now there is this possibility, how does that change your approach?
Well, I think you always want hope. You always want hope that, and a lot of times when you're on teams, the quarterback position gives more hope than anything to a team. So a lot of times when a team loses their starting quarterback, the defense says we have to play perfect. And when you don't play perfect, then it all spirals out of control. So you want hope. And at 2-7, a lot of people were probably saying there's not a whole lot of hope. You win 2 games. You win these next 2 games, and all of a sudden you're 6-7. I think right now this team believes that they can win the division. I think they think Atlanta's not unbeatable. We just beat them 2 weeks ago. Tampa, they've got a lot of injuries. They're sitting there right in front. It's a very good winnable schedule. I think that during the bye week, guys are looking at those things a little bit and looking at the bigger picture. And when you have that hope dangling out in front of you, you're more likely to take care of your body. You're more likely to watch some film on the bye week. It's not, where do we get our off-season vacation plans ready for during the bye week? So because of that, it's exciting. They played well enough to put themselves in a little bit of a position to have hope like that.
Yeah. Well, it's been fun the last 2 games, getting these wins. Got a little reprieve this week. You can stay home in Dallas, and we'll catch up with you again next week in the Superdome against the Rams. It's going to be good. I'm excited for that game.
I'm excited about that game. Like I said, if you don't show up pass defense, it could be interesting. There's a little bit of PTSD, I think, with seeing the Rams come from the dome too.
Yeah.
We got to get over that, and hopefully nothing good happens in that end zone for the Rams.
Definitely. That is a good point. Well, thank you so much, Scott, for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great stuff from Shanle. Now to Sara Anderson, Director of Entertainment Teams at the Saints and Pelicans. Sara, welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. It's awesome to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
You are quite busy.
Yes.
Because you are in charge of both the Pel Squad and the Cheer Krewe and everything that goes on in getting both of those people, all of those people, ready for every single game.
Yes.
Can you just kind of break down a little bit about your job and your role?
Yeah, for sure. So I am the Director of Entertainment Teams. So under my umbrella, like you said, I have our 57-member Cheer Krewe, our 29-member Pel Squad. I also run the Early Birds dance team, as well as our mascots. So, my role, obviously, during games is to make sure they are where they need to be, on time, doing what they're supposed to be doing, things of that nature. But in the office, it's all about planning in advance, making sure we have a schedule of what routines we're doing when, what we are doing at every practice, ordering uniforms, ordering palms, ordering tights, ordering all of those things.
Yeah.
But also making sure that I am in meetings with all of the other departments to make sure we are remaining on brand. And, delivering a product on the field and on the court that is going to make the organization proud. So it's a lot of work. It is it's a huge time commitment. Work a lot of nights and a lot of weekends. We practice twice a week for 3.5 hours, sometimes longer if we're not feeling good about ending practice on time. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. I've danced my entire life, so it's my passion and it's what I love to do. So it's worth it.
It's really funny because when I talk to friends and family and they're like, wait, you're working? I'm like, when do you watch games? Nights and weekends.
Correct.
So yeah, I'm working and it is a weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, people don't quite understand everything that goes into it when they're sitting at home or sitting in the arena stadium watching it all go down.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And then what do you do in the off season? What off season?
Right.
Off season for us is prepping for the next season. It's auditions, it's practices, it's learning routines, it's, traveling to Vegas to learn choreography, things of that nature. So it is a year-round full-time position, obviously, but love it.
Yeah. What is the feeling going into a game day?
Oh, gosh. Going into a game day, it's a lot of emotions. It's excitement because the team is excited every single game day walking into our, arenas. Every game day is a little different. Every routine is a little different. So obviously there's some nerves on, is this going to hit? Is this going to look good? Is the crowd going to enjoy it? Things of that nature. But also for me, I have a running list in my head on game days. I'm like, okay, did I do this? Did I do that? Did I put the signs out? Did I put the stools out? Did I actually put the right person in this group on game? It's all of the back end stuff that keeps me up at night that I'm like, oh, did I forget something? Did I miss something? Because it's a lot that goes into it. So for me, I just, like I said earlier, I want to make sure that I'm always delivering something that people are happy with. So it's really just making sure that I am checking all those boxes and not dropping the ball anywhere and not letting anyone down because I am my toughest critic. But I also know that there's a lot of eyes on me in the organization, not only from my teams, but, higher ups and things of that nature. So just making sure that I am doing my best so everyone that is working for me and are on my teams is delivering the best that they can as well.
Yeah. It's funny because I think in both of our roles, no matter how the team is performing, we have to bring the energy and the smiles and positivity.
Oh,
and
yes.
it can be hard sometimes.
But
sure. These last 2 wins from the Saints, that has to be a lot
they've been incredible.
Fun, right?
Oh, they have been incredible. At the end of the game, everyone's like, we're exhausted. We just did crook so many times. I'm like, welcome to a winning game. This is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something that I stress, literally from day one with my teams is that no matter what is happening on the court and the field, we bring the energy. It is our job to set the tone. It is our job to make the memories for our fans. It is our job to make sure the fans are staying engaged. So that's something that we really stress. And if I see someone starting to, days off on some of the games that we're not doing as well, go give a little friendly reminder in the moment and be like, hey, need you to pick it up, need you to smile, need you to give me a little more energy. Let's go.
Yeah.
But it's something, like I said, that from day one is ingrained in their brains. So it's pretty easy for them once they get the hang of it, once they get that first game out of the way.
You got to make a really special memory with a girl from Atlanta, ironically, for the Falcons game. Miana came into town and all she wanted to do was be a member of the Saints Cheer Krewe.
Yes.
Can you explain to me how this all came to happen?
Sure. So over the summer, I actually received an email from, her name is Mandy, with an organization called Dream 13. And they are an organization that makes sports-based dreams come true for children that have a life-altering condition. So for Miana specifically, she has a heart condition, and she actually, in February, underwent open heart surgery. She was an 8-year-old girl. She just turned 9. She made sure to make that clear when she came in. But she was an 8-year-old girl who loved to dance, loved ballet, loved tap, just happy-go-lucky. And then at the drop of a hat, her entire life changed. And, she was rushed into surgery and is not able to fully dance the way she wants right now. Walking up a set of stairs, she has to take a break at the top because her heart starts racing. So I was contacted by Mandy with Dream on 3, and she shared me on a story and shared that her dream was to dance with the Saints Cheer Krewe, and I instantly started crying because that was just an incredible feeling. I know what the team means to me. I know what the team means to the organization. I know that there are little boys and girls that are looking up to our teams just like I did when I was growing up. But having someone from Atlanta, which is funny that we brought her for Falcons, but someone from Atlanta who from there is looking at us and looking up to us and wanting to be a part of our organization was just really, really special. And I knew I needed to make it happen for her. So immediately started sending it, talked to different departments, and I'm like, what can we do for her? How can we get her here? We need to make this happen. And we did.
Yeah. She came to a practice.
She did. She came in on a Thursday. They flew her out here. She arrived in a limo, all decked out with her Saints bow gold.
Her outfit was incredible.
That was a surprise to her. So I actually surprised her with that uniform at practice. She just thought she was coming to watch practice, and that was it. Just come in, hang out with us, spend a little time with us, get to know us. But when she got here, I surprised her with the custom uniform that looks just like our two-piece, but in dress form. I surprised her with game palms, and I also surprised her with the opportunity to learn crunk, which obviously is a huge deal down here. Every time we score a touchdown, it plays. And she was able to perform it with us in the dome. So her thought was that she's just coming to hang out at practice, and then all of these extra things were given to her, and the opportunity to dance with us was a little bit greater than what she initially expected. And her reaction was priceless. She was amazed. She was like, this is so beautiful. She was so excited. Her mom and dad teared up. Leah, who was her dream leader at Dream on 3, was shocked as well because, again, that was just something that I added in after I had spoken to Mandy and we had come up with the plan. But I wanted to make sure it was extra special, and I wanted to do something and give her something that was one of a kind that she could keep for the rest of her life and remember this experience.
So on game day, she got to hang out with you guys.
Yes.
The entire game on the sideline.
Not on the sideline, unfortunately, just because of, the armband regulations and everything. But we made sure she was down low, and every single corner went up to her. She came down the steps. We were taking pictures. She was doing crunk with us in the stands. But before the game, she was able to hang out with us. And again, like I said, perform crunk with us.
Very cool.
Which was an amazing experience.
Yeah. What was the reaction from her family after the game and experiencing that? Yeah,
her mom, her and I actually had a conversation during practice just about what this meant to Miana and her family, and how much her life has changed and everything that they've been going through and she has been going through as her mother. And it was a really special moment and a moment that I won't ever forget. After the game, she hugged me. She did not want to let me go. She was crying, thanking me, just telling me how incredible this was and how, we went above and beyond, and they'll never be able to thank us enough for this moment. And then she actually found me on Instagram and sent me a direct message on Instagram thanking me again, and just telling me how incredible this was and how Miana was still talking about it, and she wanted to wear her uniform to school and everything. So for me, this is something that I will never forget. This is a moment and a memory that I will hold with me the rest of my life, and I am so, so glad to have been a tiny part of this dream for her, because it's this team, and it's so much bigger than just the 2-minute performance on the field, and I think this was just a true testament of that. And it was incredible.
Yeah, because you guys are out in the community a lot. You're at a lot of different events, and you care about the city. This fan base cares so much about this team, and it's more than just the players on the field. There is so much that goes into it, and for you to be able to have that impact on a little girl from Atlanta.
For the Falcons game.
She's going to remember forever, and we got that win. And so, that's really cool. And I know they're coming out with the story, a video, and there's pictures and stuff like that. I got a chance to look at it, and she looks so happy.
She really was.
And the other members of the team, like their interactions with her were really cool too.
Yeah. They honestly have not stopped talking about it either. And just what an impact she made on us in that short amount of time. And, you know, when I originally told them about it, we had a lot of tears in the room. They just couldn't believe that, you know, this little girl was wanting to dance with them from Atlanta and just making that memory. They knew they wanted to make it as special as they could for her as well. So really made sure during water breaks or in between routines or, you know, when they weren't involved directly in something, they were grabbing her, they were pulling her, they were putting her in the air in stunts. They were talking to her about, they got into a huge debate on whether or not to eat ranch with your pizza, like just anything and everything that she wanted to talk about. They just really wanted to bond with her and, you know, make her feel seen and made her feel special. You know, it was an incredible experience.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me. It's always fun to hear like what this team, the organization, the impact that they can have on, you know, people that might be struggling. I mean, we've seen it in the biggest form with Katrina, but you know, it still happens every day in different ways. And so I love that, and I commend you for going above and beyond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would do it all over again.
That does it for this week's podcast. And don't forget, this NFL season, you can feel every play, every hit, every moment with the Sony 1000 XM5 noise canceling headphones, the official headphones of the New Orleans Saints. With premium noise cancellation, you are in the zone, no distractions, just pure football. Whether you're in your living room or on the go, you'll never miss a beat with Sony headphones. We'll be back Tuesday with another podcast as the Saints kick off practices ahead of the LA Rams. Enjoy the bye weekend.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Saints podcast. Join us 3 times per week on NewOrleansSaints.com, the Saints mobile app, or you can download the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Saints podcast.